Welcome to Kidmissing TV. I am your host, Angelina Wilson. This is the case of the Lewis Clark Valley murders. This is a serial offender's case. Okay. I gotta make sure that I've only got that case in my hand. Okay. The victims were Christina White, Kristen David, Christina Diane Nelson, I know there's more. I know there's more. There are 5. Jacqueline Miller, $35-year-old Stephen Purcell, which I don't think would be part of the same, anyway, group of murders, but it was a cluster of unsolved murders and disappearances that occurred in the Lewiston, Clarkston metropolitan area of northern Idaho between 1979 and 1982. Law enforcement has said 4 victims are from the same suspect. Christina White, Chrissy White, was 12. She was last seen in Asotin, Washington on April 28, 1979 at the Asotin County Fair. She called her mother at around 2:30 p.m. from a friend's house to report feeling ill from the heat. Because she did not own a car, her mother was unable to pick her up. Instead, she advised Christina to rest, lay down, and apply a moist towel to her neck. Then, when she felt better, to return home. And her mother assumed that she returned to the fair, so she wasn't too worried when she didn't call her back. Between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., Christina was last seen on the 500 block of 2nd Street. She was not there when her mother arrived to pick her up. When her classmates last saw her, she was reportedly on her way home. Her schoolwork was discovered in pieces at a field outside Asotin a few weeks after she vanished. She was last seen riding her white 10-speed bicycle at the time, and it has never been found. The next victim was Kristen David. Senior student at the University of Idaho, Kristen Noel David, 22, was last seen on a bicycle June 26, 1981, traveling from Moscow, Idaho, south on U.S. Highway 95 to Lewiston, Idaho. Her dismembered remains were found on July 4, 1981, 6 miles west of Clarkston, Washington, and just west of Silcott Island, along the Snake River. The following day, some but not all of the bones were discovered somewhere down the river. The body parts were wrapped in pages from several local newspaper editions from April of 1981 and hidden inside black plastic bags. Clothing, other personal belongings, and her blue 10-speed bicycle were never found. Several people traveling on the highway saw her, and some saw her being approached by a man in a brown vehicle on the west or southbound side of the road, just outside of Genesee, Idaho. According to witnesses, the man approached and interacted with several female cyclists and pedestrians that day. At the Lewiston Civic Theater, Christina Diane Nelson, 21, and her stepsister, Jacqueline Ann Brady Miller, 18, disappeared while walking from Nelson's apartment to a grocery store in downtown Lewiston, Idaho. on September 12, 1982. On the same night, Stephen R. Pearsall, 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 35, also went missing from the Lewiston Civic Theater. He asked his friends to drop him off so he could do some laundry, washing, and clarinet practice. He worked there as a janitor. He has not been seen or heard from since. He left his clarinet at the theater, which he would never do. He also left an uncashed paycheck in his apartment, his car parked at a friend's house. And he knew both women. He had a big brother relationship with them. They lived a few blocks away from his apartment. They would have passed the theater. That's why they think he was killed by the same person. The remains of Nelson and Miller were found on March 19, 1984, in a rural area 35 miles from Lewiston near Kendrick, Idaho. Investigators were unable to determine a cause of death for Nelson, but determined Miller had been murdered. Pearsall was never located. Investigators initially suspected he may have been involved in the abduction, but later stated that all three had probably been in or near the theater at the time they vanished and were likely victims of the same killer. They believe he may have witnessed their murders and was killed as a result. In 1984, Idaho State Police stated that serial killer Otis Toole had implicated himself in the murder of David and was their strongest suspect, but added that two other men had also confessed to the same crime. In 2009, a retired Lewiston police detective who had also interviewed Toole stated that he had ruled him out. Well, that's not unusual. In 1995, the Lewiston police announced that Nelson, Miller, and Pearsall may have been murdered together inside the Civic Theater by another theater employee. The suspect, who was present at the theater the night of the trio's disappearance, had also lived in the home from which Christina White disappeared in 1979. In 1998, authorities from Spokane, who were investigating the killings that would later be attributed to Robert Lee Yates, interviewed this same suspect. In 1998, Lewiston police stated their belief that Kristen David's murder was linked with the other Lewiston area murders and disappearances. A 2009 news report stated that David had worked for a time at the Lewiston Civic Theater. Wow. Oh boy. In 2011, a 53-minute documentary examining the case called Confluence was released, which identified the unnamed suspect. In 2018, a two-part television documentary series examining the case, Cold Valley, aired on Investigation Discovery. I'm looking for it. And a Stoughton County police detective who appeared on the program reaffirmed the links police had made earlier. Okay. The body of 8-year-old Diane Taylor was found on August 3rd, 19... Okay, The program also linked suspect Voss with 3 other cases in and outside the region, including an unsolved Chicago murder from 1963. The body of 8-year-old Diane Taylor was found on August 3rd, 1963, behind an alley in the Austin neighborhood in Chicago, Illinois. She had been stabbed and slashed, with a stab wound to her heart being the cause of death. Law enforcement believe that Diane was murdered elsewhere and her body dumped in the alley. Her autopsy findings led law enforcement to believe that she had been murdered approximately 36 hours prior to her body being found. She was seen walking around 2:10 p.m. down an alley behind the Austin YMCA. She attended the day camp at the YMCA, and she had asked a counselor to help her unwrap a lollipop. And a friend stated that Diane left walking down the alley behind the YMCA at around 2 p.m. Her murder remains unsolved. 3 years after White disappeared, other people from the Lewis-Clark Valley of the Pacific Northwest, which borders Washington and Idaho, started disappearing. Of the 5 people that went missing all those years ago, the remains of only 3 have been discovered. Over 43 years have gone, well, more than that. 1978. About 45 years now. Yeah. 45 years now. And they remain unsolved. Police suggest that the alleged murders in the barely populated valley located in the northern side of Idaho was committed by an unidentified serial killer. They think he's responsible, maybe responsible, for more than 30 murders over the course of over 40 years. That's pushing it. People Magazine Investigates is also going to cover it. Did cover it in June of 2022. So, see if I have a phone number in this case. Most of my cases this month I do. Okay. The former FBI investigator is not as convinced that one perpetrator is responsible for all the murders, and law enforcement has so far shied away from fully linking them, even seeking to distance the David murder from the others. Looking at the cases in the valley, the one that sort of stands out is Kristen David. He said, I've worked dismembered cases before, and the people that are into that is a whole different animal. Think about what you would have to do to dismember a body. You would have to have a location, you'd have to have the time, you'd have to have the wherewithal, you'd have to have the equipment. I mean, it really gets gruesome. I think it's realistic that you may, here in the valley, have 2 killers. So many people think you can plug DNA into CODIS, the combined DNA information system, and bada bing, bada boom, you have a suspect. And all victims are all that, and all that. And that's not the way it works. Yeah, I don't have a phone number for this case. Oh my goodness. Excuse me. Thank you so much for joining me. Please join me next time here in Kidmissing TV. Please consider subscribing. If you use Temu, click on my affiliate link. Please check out my social media links, all in the permalinks in the description. Thank you so much. for your kindness, your support, your subscribes. It means the world to me. Bye, guys. Mwah.